Christmas bells ring, ring, swinging my shopping bag, singing.
Hi guys, today I'm going to be trying on the Holiday Dior. It's the Ecrin Couture palette. It's the one for the face, eyes and lips. I picked up last year's one and I absolutely loved it. Although I didn't like the lipsticks in it that much, but this year's ones, at least a couple of them, are more suited to the lipsticks that I would wear as my everyday makeup. I also was drawn to the colour of the blushes in this year's one, and the highlighter is more cooler than last year's one as well. And of course the eyeshadow palette itself in this is really, really beautiful. So here is the packaging that it comes in, and this is made in France. Now I have last year's in front of me. So last year's one had the gold bar, but it was plain, and it had this engraved pattern on the front, and it was made out of a type of pleather. This was really, really lovely. And this year's one, the gold bar has the engraving on it, and all the outside casing is in a velvet, and it just feels really, really beautiful. I think this year's packaging is just gorgeous. So I'll hold them up both side by side. I don't know whether it will fully fit into the screen, but that's what they look like side by side. So they are different and each one is really beautiful. I do think out of the two that possibly this year's one looks a little bit more luxe. Now this was for sale. I think Sephora had it, and I think Nordstrom had it as well. And when I had a look yesterday, I'll have a look again when I put up this video after I've edited it and upload it with the description box and everything like that. But when I had a look yesterday, I couldn't find it on the Nordstrom site, and I couldn't find it on the Sephora site either. They do have the other 5 eyeshadow palette that they put out that I did a video on a little while ago. Both places have got that, but this one they don't seem to have anymore. But it is still on the Dior site. Now whether you want this for yourself, or I just think this would also make a really beautiful gift as well. It's really, really lovely. So the gold bar at the front you just pull down, and it's sort of like a clutch style sort of palette, and then inside it has a really big mirror, and I'll just tip out the brushes. It does come with a lip brush and then also another two-sided sponge tip for applying the eyeshadow. Now I did try out this palette the other day just to see what I thought of it. So it doesn't quite look in pristine condition. It is really, really lovely. I think it looks gorgeous. The blushes are a type of, there's a coral red in there and a pink. And as I was saying before, the highlighter is pinker than last year's, so that is more cooler. The lipsticks perhaps have a little bit more warmth in them. But the two lipsticks that I love the most are these two at the end here. Really, really beautiful. So you've got a really nude one here, and this one is really gorgeous. And yesterday, and I'll probably do it as well today, I actually mixed both of these shades together, and I thought it looked really, really lovely. And here's what the two eyeshadow palettes look like together. So this one down here is this year's, and up here we've got last year's one. So I will swatch these on my arm and do comparisons between the two. So I think first of all I'll start off with the highlighters. So these are the two highlighters. This is last year's palette, and here's this one, and this one is the cooler. Last year's was more gold and definitely warmer. And these two are last year's blushes, and this is this year's blushes. I think this pink is really, really beautiful, and I love this more reddy colour as well. So the blushes last year, both of them were the pink, and so together definitely more pink than this year's palette. So these 5 shades here, this is last year's face palette, and here is this year's. This shade here, the swatch may look brown, but it's actually got quite a lot of purple in it, and this has quite a lot of pink in it, sort of pink salmony shade, and this palette didn't have that last year. This one here is the pink shade that you can hardly see on my arm, and it was more of a topper shade where there doesn't really appear to be any topper shades in this year's. So these 4 lipsticks here are from last year's palette, and this is this year's one. So last year's lipsticks definitely had a lot more pink in it, and these lipsticks here, this is this year's palette, and I really love this one. You can't really see it much on my skin tone, nor can you really see it much on my lips either, but I do love mixing it with the other shades. So I've already got all my base makeup on: foundation, concealer, powder and bronzer, and everything that I'm putting on my face today I will have listed and linked in the description box below. So first of all, I'm going to start off with the eyeshadow, and I'm going to go into this shade here and put that on first. This is a really, really pretty colour. And I'm actually just going to go dip into that colour just a little bit more. And I'm going to take that over the crease, brow bone, and above the brow bone as well. And so I'll just carry on with the rest of the eye look and put some music to it when I'm editing this video.
The river flows one direction, and fishes, they follow the flow. But what if one tried to mention that there was much more to explore? Here I am, I have a plan, I'm living free, don't know where I'll land. Here I am, I have a plan, I'm living free, don't know where I'll land. A dragonfly heard the message. Darkness was home for the star. It spread its wings to the surface. The bright colors set them apart. Here I am, I have a plan, I'm living free, don't know where I'll land. Here I am, I have a plan, I'm living free, don't know where I'll land. Here I am, I have a plan, I'm living free, don't know where I'll land. Here I am, I have a plan, I'm living free, don't know where I'll land. Here I am.
So for the blush, I'm going to use a Chukahodo brush. This is a really soft one. This is the KZ02 cheek brush because I'm going to use both of these shades, so it's not going to give a huge amount of payoff because it's such a soft brush. But I really just want a hint of that colour, and I also want a soft brush because I do have a feeling with this more one that's red, it's going to have a lot of pigment. So even though it's a lighter colour and I'm using a soft brush, I would really stop there for me for my everyday type of blush. I think that this is just really, really pretty all on its own. But now I'm going to go into this shade here, and I'm going to go fairly carefully. There's quite a bit of pigment on the brush. And I'm just going to just tap that in. So I would go very easy with this colour if you don't want the bright red cheeks. I think the colour itself is really beautiful, but for me I just think you need to go fairly easy with it. But I do love that colour, and both together they look really beautiful too. So even though I did go in very lightly using that soft brush, I think it's just a bit too much. So I'm just going to tone it down a bit. And I'm just using the Beauty Blender that I use to put my foundation on with. And just slightly just tap over it just to tone it down just a little bit. So now I'll go into the highlighter. This is really pretty. With highlighters, I tend to prefer a cooler one. And it is really beautiful. The one last year was really beautiful too. I think the Dior formula of these are really, really gorgeous. Now with the lipsticks, there are 3 satins and there is 1 metallic shade. This one here I'm pretty sure is the metallic shade, and the other 3 are the satins. Now I will put on this lipstick first and show you. You probably won't see it very much on my lips at all. But what I do love about nude lipsticks, and ones that barely show, is that if I put on a lipstick that I think is a bit too much, because I like the more soft shades in lipsticks, then I go over with a nude shade, and for me it gives the perfect look. So I'm not going to wear the red or this one today. This one has a little bit of brown, more warmth in it. So I'm going to start off with this shade first, just to show you what it looks like on. And I've got an old MAC lip brush here, so I'm going to use this one. I don't know whether they still have this brush. This is number 316. So you can see that it's really just barely there, but I actually like it because my cheeks are a bit more bold since I double blushed using the pink and that red and with the highlighter, and my eyes are more bold as well, so I quite like the nude lip. But what I'll do now is I'll just pop this shade on so you can take a look, and I'm going to pop it over the top of the shade that I've already got on. So that's this metallic shade over the top. Now for me, with the blush and the eyes, it's too much. I would really just be going for this shade here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the top again, and I'm going to use the shade just to soften this one down a bit as well. I just want a more of a nude lip. And for me, that's better. Just putting that nude shade over the top has just toned it all down, and that's how I prefer it. Especially, like I was saying, with me, my eye look's a bit more bold, and also with the bolder cheek colour as well. Now, I used to do this all the time years ago. I always used to have quite a nude lipstick in my collection, and I'd have a range of different colours, and when I'd put one on and think it was too bold, I would always mix it with a more nude shade, and I always seem to come up with the perfect lip colour for me. So that is something that you can do. If you've got a lipstick that you think is just a bit too much and you don't reach for it a lot, but you do have a nude shade somewhere in your collection, just mix them together and it just tones them down, and I think you can get some really beautiful looks. So altogether, I think that this face palette by Dior is gorgeous. I think the packaging is absolutely beautiful with the velvet, and the eyeshadows perform really beautifully. So the shade here is the only matte, and the rest are satins. There aren't any topper shades in this quint. I think it's really beautiful. I used all the shades, but I think if I was going to use it again for a more softer day look, I'd probably do something like these 3 shades here and maybe use the definition with this colour here. This shade here is really beautiful with the purple in it. Really, really gorgeous. I really love the blushes, but for me I have to go very, very easy with this colour here. For me, out of the 2, this colour is more one that I would reach for an everyday look. I think it is a really beautiful pink, and I love the highlighter because it's more pink, so it's more cool toned. I think it looks really, really gorgeous. Out of all the lipsticks, this is the one that I would reach for the least because it has more of the brown in it. A red is really nice if occasionally I want to wear a red, but these 2 are the colours that I will get the most use out of this palette. So do you need this palette if you had last year's one? They are fairly similar. It just depends what sort of colour story you like. And if you really enjoyed last year's palette, you're really going to love this one too, especially if you want those more softer lipsticks. And if you're leaning towards this blush that has the red in it as well, I think it really, really beautiful, and it performs really beautifully as well. And as I was saying before, the packaging of this is just really, really beautiful. The velvet feels very luxurious and it looks really, really gorgeous. And out of the 2 for the packaging, last year's with the pleather with the embossing, I think I prefer this one. I prefer with the engraving on the bar and the velvet. It just feels really, really beautiful. So if you're thinking about getting this, you won't be disappointed. It is a really, really lovely palette, and this would also make a really beautiful gift for someone as well. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Bye.